Hello, everybody, and welcome to Boss Level. This is a podcast where we feature conversations with guests who have leveled up, bringing an experience boost to the table. And today we have a very fun, very exciting guest, Kristen Michaela, or also known online as Kitty Plays. This is kind of like a full circle moment for me. When I first got started streaming, you were one of the first girl streamers I'd ever seen. So it's like 6-7 years later, and it's like, here we are. So you are an inspiration to a lot of women in the gaming industry. And your brand has generated millions of dollars. You've worked with all kinds of companies, Verizon, Google, Best Buy, Benefit Cosmetics, Activision, all over the place, right? So many different things. You're like an all-encompassing. And it feels like you're kind of like evolving out of the influencer and stepping into a newer kind of like it's like you're expanding. I don't know. It's been really cool to watch and witness, but we're going to get back into talking with Kitty more in depth with the episode. To get us started, maybe we could introduce ourselves. If you remember from the last episode, there were 4 of us. Don't worry, we didn't fire them. For each of our episodes, we're going to be swapping off our hosts. So there will be usually two of us with the guests, 2 of us. So this week is me, Hey Shady Lady, and Jess Brohard. Jess, would you like to introduce yourself a little bit?
I would love to. Thank you so much, Shady. So yeah, I'm Jess Brohard, and I've been around the gaming and esports scene for quite a while now, nearly a decade. And I've done a lot of hosting and content creation and a lot of good stuff. So really, really excited to be here for the official episode 1. And like, just like Shady said, I have like a long history with Kristen as well. And I joined her stream team, Team Kitty, back in, I think, probably 2016 or 2017. And that has just been like an amazing opportunity and blessing for me. So excited to be once again talking to her for this podcast.
And then Kristen, maybe we could start with your username. I've always wondered this, where did Kitty come from?
Yeah, Kitty. Well, my name is Kristen. It started with a K, and I had a good friend of mine in high school, and she just decided to call me Kitty a lot. So when I was coming online, my original gamer tag was Beans Rice, and just Beans Rice. And I'm like, okay, this is probably not something that I want to continue using. I had to answer even more questions about that username. And so I'm like, Kitty. And then I was originally Kitty Plays Games, because I used to be like Kitty Plays MC for Minecraft, Kitty Plays WoW for World of Warcraft. And it just evolved to be Kitty Plays when I went through a revolution out of, I'm not just a gamer, I do other things too. And Twitch started to allow more content like IRL and cooking and things like that. So I dropped the games, and now I'm just Kitty Plays in life. So
that's sweet. I love that.
Yeah.
I've always wished that my name was like more interesting. Like, Hey Shady Lady was literally just, I needed a Tumblr username, and I was like, this rhymes. Like, that's it. I like rhyming words, I guess.
Once again, I have to say, I never picked a username or anything like that. So at least you got that far. Like,
I know,
but you never had it. What about WoW though, Jess? Like, don't you have some usernames?
I mean, okay, yeah. So I did I had 2 usernames really until I actually until 2011. So first I went by, my first like gamer tag really was like Chome, which is so weird and such a weird little story. In Japan, I was a Japanese minor in college. And so in Japan, a like neighborhood or a district is called a chome. And if you look at the word as it is like anglicized into like English letters so that, people who are learning Japanese can read it, it looks like the word chome. It's CHOME. And like one of my classmates was like, what's a chome? And I just thought it was so funny. And I was like, that's a funny word. So I went by that, but it sounds very much like a dirty word as well. So yeah, I only use that.
That was my first thought.
Yes, and I was like, cause I was like naive. I was like a little like freshman in college, I think, when I first like went by that. So anyway, then I changed to Ruckus, cause like I'm clumsy and like I'm always like causing a ruckus. But I don't know, once I started like hosting and stuff, I was like, no, hosts don't like have a gamer tag or a go by. They just use their real name because it's professional and I want people to take me seriously. And then now I see all these like casters and hosts that have like, obviously like, because we're all gamers, but
I just like so cool and professional. And I don't know, like I'm like in business emails, like sending them my name and tax information and signing it Shady. So like, I don't know.
Like, that's the norm now. That's like, it's the new standard of professionalism. You know, it's just kind of different than like, it's not like we're all like accountants, you know, doing corporate taxes and then signing off our emails, you know, like headshot sniper 420 or something like that. It's like a different world.
True. Yeah.
I like this world. This world is way more fun than the accounting world.
It's expanding in a very interesting and exciting and scary way for sure. Like, fantasy and reality are merging rapidly. It's very interesting. When you started streaming, what kind of games were you mostly playing?
Yeah, I played an assortment of games, but my main focus, just because it's all I could run on my MacBook Pro, was Heroes of New Earth. It's since been...
Oh my gosh, I don't know like any... No, that's great. That's great. Nobody played Heroes. I played only a small amount of Han, very small amount. Okay.
I've never heard of it. What kind of game is it?
It's like Dota. It's a MOBA. And it was the only thing that I could run on my MacBook Pro. And when I went to university, I left my consoles at home because I was a big Halo and Call of Duty player. And so I was like, okay, I will study if I don't bring the consoles. But then I just learned how to game on my MacBook Pro, and I would play Han nonstop because Dota wasn't updated on the Mac at the time. And that's when I got into streaming. And yeah, at the time you had to run like 4 different software programs to stream, like one to capture your audio, one to capture your video, one to put it together, and then one to upload it to the cloud, plus Han on a computer meant for, you know, taking notes on. So
because this would have been what, like 2011 or so?
2013.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I was just thinking, because I was like, I haven't heard of Han since, you know, in over a decade, probably.
I was definitely like late stage Han, you know, and then it kept going for a couple
So you would, when it
years.
already had gone free to play.
It had gone free to play. Yes.
I paid money for Han. People make fun of me for that.
Wow.
No, Han was like, I mean, it was a phenomenal game. It was great. It was like pretty well balanced. And I mean, I love MOBAs and working as a team and, you know, shit talking each other sometimes. So it was perfect for that.
It's funny, you can't separate the gamer from the game. We'll find a way to play a game. I literally have Simon on my Fitbit, like, so I could, like, if I have nothing to do, I at least have like a little game here. So I feel like we'll just find some way to play something somewhere, even if we don't have our, like, you know, PC rig or whatever.
Yeah. Well, did either of you ever play, like, you did you have those graphing calculators in high school, and you could play like probably Pac-Man and like Snake and like I don't know about Pac-Man. I might have made that
install different games too.
Yeah.
Once I found that out, it was like game over or game on.
Yeah.
So, game over for school, game on for my entertainment in class.
Yeah.
So you played a lot of MOBAs. I've never played many MOBAs myself. There's something about like being too far away from the gameplay that kind of it's weird, because I was also in chess club in high school, so you would think I would like to be out of the battlefield, and I like games like Civ 5, but MOBAs I've never been able to like get immersed in. Are the worlds of the MOBA games, if you could choose any video game world to live in, would you choose one of those, or is there another game in mind?
Oh no, there's another game in mind for sure. My favorite game world I think I've ever explored was Super Mario Sunshine.
Oh,
I don't know if you guys have ever played that game, but it's
Is
like
that the one with the jetpack?
Yeah,
was
there's a
that
jetpack
Galaxy?
in the Super Mario. Yeah, and you're just collecting all the stars in like this beachfront city town and these caves, and there's islands and water, and it's just like this sunny, like it pretty much describes like my character as a person now, and living in Miami too. Like I feel like I'm living in Super Mario Sunshine, where it's just like these beautiful landscapes. And I mean, if I went back and looked at the graphics now, they're definitely, it's not the same as like picking like a Zelda Breath of the Wild or something, but it was just the excitement and the joy that it elicited when I was playing at that age, and all the sunshine and the stars and the dopamine rewards in it.
yeah.
Like, I would definitely live in some sort of world like that.
That's a good one.
I think you should
what
try
about
to.
you?
I know, like even like sitting there, so like my brain was my 3 brain cells were rubbing together, like, like, can you think of a game? And I'm like, I don't know, like I don't like Breath of the Wild would be a good answer because it's gorgeous, but it's also like really scary monsters all over the place. So I don't know how to like deal with that. But I don't know. I probably the first thing that came to mind was Stardew, but that also Stardew Valley. It also doesn't make any sense because it's not really that far removed from reality here. I guess it's rather than the universe that I would be immersed in, it's the concept of the game, I think, is how my brain is trying to understand the question. So I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, I really want that cottagecore moment of like, grandpa left me a rickety old ranch and I get to like, I've always, since I was like a kid, it's been into like Harvest Moon, and the idea of even all these cell phone games are kind of playing off this idea, like you're moving across the world to a frozen tundra and you have to rebuild this house from scratch. Like I think to me, I love the idea of taking something from ground zero and building it up to something beautiful. So I doesn't answer the universe, but that's what my brain is like. What would I want to get immersed in? Like where would I want to get sent to? Like I guess that out in the country.
Maybe you can start creating that.
Yeah, that would be cool. That is like my 60-year-old, I want to be on my front porch with my goats and chickens around staring off over a mountain range. Like, so
maybe what you're describing is a simulation game. Cause like in general, I find like sim games to just be very like relaxing. It's like a massage for your brain, no matter if it's like the Stardew Valley setting or what have you. But so maybe that could be your universe, just like a simulation.
True. It's just like, get me out of this world, but put me into just a different version of this world where I don't have these problems. I get new problems. Like really lame answer. But
I can just see you having to do the podcast in your simulation game of yourself and your makeup before the podcast. But
I'm in a simulation.
World doesn't have bills and accounting.
Yeah, there aren't bills in Stardew. That's true. You just got to buy your seeds and sell them. I guess that's you
nice. Do have a loan to pay back though.
Well, that's Animal Crossing. I'm not trying
Animal Crossing, you're right.
No thanks, Tom Nook. No thanks. Debt Simulator. I do like Animal Crossing though. What about you, Jess? Do you have a universe you'd go to?
No, I was just trying to think as well as you two were discussing, and I can't come up with one. Like maybe I would say Okami or something. Like I didn't really play that game, but just because like the cell shaded graphics, that would be a very visually interesting world to get like transported into. But I don't know. Also, the idea when I think too much about like being in a video game universe, that does kind of scare me because I get into that kind of uncanny valley like line of thinking of like, oh no, but like everything would be so I wouldn't be bound by the constructs of reality. And like, yeah, I have bills to pay in the real world, but like I don't have to worry about, I don't know, driving and rocks falling on me. Like if this were Mario Kart on Choco Mountain or something like that.
Maybe, I mean, the game isn't out yet, but the Avatar universe, when they released that video game, oh my God, the alien Avatar, not Avatar, the last Airbender.
Like the James Cameron
Avatar,
movie?
the James Cameron movie, that universe, when they released that game, I think I don't know if it's going to be an MMO or what, but it's like open. I know from what I've seen, it's like open world, but
hopefully it'll function with Neuralink too, like
Lord,
that would be, if there's anything, like I'm kind of still on the fence over like, getting out of this current reality and into a new one. Like I think there's a lot of work we have to do here. But if there was an Avatar world, I would fully be like, take my consciousness, put me in. Like I'm trying to create that on Earth right now. So that's why
I'm like kind of afraid of the VR. Like I did get my first dose of like VR chat. I watched some of my friends play it. I guess I kind of avoided it, and I was like, oh, I see the appeal of this. But then I just flashed back to like there's a Batman Beyond episode I watched when I was like 10 that just I think scarred me. But it was a virtual reality tubes that people would go to in an arcade, and they were just kind of like addicted to it. Like they were scrounging for coins so they could get back to the virtual universe that they were in, and like more of like
basically Ready Player One.
Yes,
like actually, they live in this like shithole, and then they put on the VR headset to like escape from.
And they get to be whatever their imagination takes them to. So it's like really beautiful, but it's also, I like you're saying, Kristen, I really feel like we need to stay connected with what's going on around here too. Like how can we blend the two together though? Like how can we get both of them to work together? That's probably what will make the best future,
That's like literally, if I think about what my mind kind of becomes all consuming on certain topics over a period of time, and lately that's been the one that it's really been like going to when I'm relaxing. My mind's out there trying to solve for this, and it came up with the idea. It's like feet in the dirt, head in the metaverse, where it's this idea that like we can be like really integrated with nature, with our lives, like with community and connection. And I think that there is this blending, and we're gonna see a lot more like AR before we see like full VR integration, and it's where it can enhance this world to maybe all the greens turn to blues and purples when you're looking out of the world, so you do feel like you're in this evolving avatar world, but we can still tend to and interact with our actual system, and then it's built in with AIs and programs that what you're doing is rewarding the soil or rewarding the people.
Oh yeah.
And there's like this kind of beautiful symbiosis that happens. And I have a lot of friends that are working in the VR and AR space, and in our conversations, and my trust of them is like fellow Burning Man people. Like they have really great intentions with using these. Like one's trying to simulate what like a spiritual awakening or psychedelic experience might be like if you were in a VR experience. So it's like they've got a bed that like vibrates and moves. They have the audio with like binaural beats, and then like music that moves your body, like resonant frequencies around your body, combined with the visuals and this journey and this path that this like being takes you along. And I was like, that would be a really fun room to be in to brainstorm for.
Well, it's interesting too, because the human mind like can't tell the difference between what it's being shown and what you're actually experiencing. That's why we like release a paralysis chemical when we go to sleep, so we don't dream about a lion and try to run away from it in real life. So being put into a situation like that, it probably could like induce like a psychedelic state. It's pretty interesting. I never even considered that.
Well, that's so interesting because that has so many implications for like people who would not necessarily like people who are curious about maybe what it would be like to take a psychedelic drug, but like would maybe have a personal reason for not wanting to do so. Like maybe they were sober or something, or like just for whatever reason, but they would still want to experience that. That's really interesting. I've never thought about it. I feel like I'm learning so much by like, just like
the ability to explore like the extent of our consciousness too, and the human mind. It gets, that's a topic I didn't think that we would get to. It's very interesting. It's one of my favorite subjects to get into, like psychedelic discussion. So I'm gonna pull us back a little bit. This is the Boss Level podcast, so we'll feet on the ground a little bit more. We'll come back down to earth a little bit and talk about what it means to be boss level to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. It was interesting because I had this conversation when we were originally brainstorming for the podcast, and it was just this idea of like reframing from expert to boss, where it's like the idea of an expert is someone who's like has a ton of experience in a world, and everyone kind of like agrees that they're expert. Maybe they need to pass something or have some certificate. It's kind of like the traditional ways of looking at things in my mind. But when you say you're an expert, you kind of also open yourself up to like criticism and like to kind of take your expert away. Whereas when you show up as a boss, you know, it's kind of like more in my association, this energy of like knowing who you are, knowing what you're doing, experiencing what you're doing and confidence in what you're doing, and then being able to translate that to either the people that work for you, your peers, or your customers, that kind of thing, or your friends. Like you can be a boss with your friends. And so it's more of like an energetic thing. And I think you can be a self-appointed boss, in my opinion. And so boss for me is just, I came into the gaming industry when it was the wild west of the gaming industry. It felt like there was like 5 female streamers on the platform on Twitch over 8 years ago now.
I was surprised to find you or like see you because it was so desaturated for that kind of representation for sure.
Yeah. It's almost like you stand out a little bit more though, because you'd see the one pink border as you're scrolling down.
I think that's where the like girls have it easy on Twitch kind of like mentality came from, because like I do a lot of Twitch tutorials and like teaching new streamers how to get into streaming, and that's still weirdly a very common like quote hate comment that I'll get on my videos is like, how to be a streamer on Twitch, easy, 1, be a girl, done. And I'm like, that's really not how it works, because I got plenty of friends who are women that are still 2 viewers. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not that easy.
No.
Right. And like it may have been, I'm not saying that was true, back in the day, but yeah, like it may have looked that way back in the day, but I don't even understand how anyone can make that argument these days when there are just so many streamers.
The same thing happens to the reverse though. Like I'm a tarot reader on Twitch, and when a male presenting person is in the tarot category, they skyrocket because it's rare to find a boy reading tarot.
Yeah.
And same in the ASMR category, finding a boy in that category, a male presenting person, they skyrocket because they're rare. Yeah.
Think
yeah.
of
Or
like
beauty
beauty
category.
influencers, Jeffree Star. Yeah. That was always my response was like, I am like a unicorn here, right? Like, because there's not a lot of like out of the closet female gamers. It's not to say there's not female gamers. I know a lot of them. There's a lot, but like to have the confidence to be out of the closet, to have the confidence to put yourself online, and then to have confidence to be in an industry that didn't want you there. Like every single day, 8 years ago, like I almost get emotional now thinking about how much better it is and like what a path that we created, these early streamers, for women to be accepted in gaming. Like it was like a battlefield. They're like, this is our cool boys club and you can't be here. And I'm like, no, sorry, honey. This is a very dark corner and I'm a lot of light and I'm coming right into this corner. Hi, how are you? But like that, and that's like I get pleasure from. And I think that's why I'm enjoying the crypto NFT space too. But now it's a world where they actually desire me being there. Like they want more women, they want representation, they understand the value of it rather than just them not knowing and being a little bit more juvenile as like the early
juvenile is the word I would use. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I would relate it to just being a boss. It's just like showing up in that world and like I've been through so many cycles of Twitch. And like when my dad used to talk about this when I was like younger, he's like, oh, the cycles of life, you know, when you're older, you've been through the cycles and you've got a bigger perspective so you can see these things. Like it's just an up and down. I was like, no, Dad, I'm only up. You know, it's gonna get good. I'm gonna have this energy forever. Things are gonna be great forever. And so, like, once you've been through in any industry, the cycles of the industry, and you found like, you know, success in the highs, the lows, the plateaus, you know, the changing of the game trends, the changing of the world trends. I think like that cultivates kind of being a boss in any industry, whether it's like hosting and casting or live streaming or selling oranges. Like you can become a boss that way, and then the confidence with it too.
So, and you have so much confidence, which is fantastic, but do you like, were there any moments that you did find yourself questioning things? Or I guess another way, like what I'm really asking is like, what advice would you give and how do you build up that confidence to be such a boss? Because like you were blazing trails from the beginning, and you know, there are so many people now who have things a lot easier for them because of people like you who came first and kind of, you know, had that confidence. But even so, a lot of people don't necessarily have that like confidence and that, you know, spunky energy that you have. Is there anything people can do to like build that up? Or is it just like, well, you're too shy to do this?
Well, definitely not too shy to do this. And I want to say that even though I came through and like broke barriers and opened up pathways for people, like it's a forever unfolding. You know, so like even though it's easier in some ways for new men and women and nays to come in and to do the like streaming, they have their own sets of like bringing the light in and expanding it. But on the topic of confidence, I 100% came into this world being someone that was like, I'm always gonna do what I want, and like I'm very lucky to like have the ability to understand structures in a way that I can figure out the strategy to do so. But it didn't happen overnight. Like I was just talking to a friend about this. Confidence for me was 100% fake it till you make it.
Yes. I
like studied the people of my school and my friends group and online and movies and media, which might have not been the best place to study confidence, but it helped me. And then I just stepped into it. Like I changed schools a lot. So my mom was always like, Kristen, you have to fake it. You have to fake that you're confident. It's like what would Jesus do? Or what would a confident person do in this moment? You got to just ask yourself that, and you got to just do it and not think about it. And then you'll see as you start showing up for yourself confidently, you're internalizing that. But at the same time, the world around you also starts reflecting that. Right. So like people start coming closer to you. They're like, oh, a confident person. I want to be near a confident person. They have no idea you're screaming in a high pitched scream inside your head. Like they don't know.
That's what I was thinking about last week's episode. Like I was really nervous to do it. I mean, it's nerve wracking anyway, starting a new project, but also it's like immediately go into your on mode in front of for the most part, strangers, right? People I'd never had any interaction with, immediately just be like fully myself, fully confident, walls down, jokes out. And inside I'm like I said, knees weak, arms spaghetti, like fit sweaty, dying inside. And, but on the outside, it from what Jess says, it didn't look like that. And I think that that's what I've always done with streaming and stuff like the streaming. The only time it's never really come through for me is when I'm performing on a physical stage. And I think it has something to do for me with like looking at people's faces in the audience, and through the virtual world, I don't have to worry about, oh, that person just laughed. Were they making fun of me? I get very like mental spirally and stuff. So I think that it is fake it till you make it, and then eventually it just is what you are.
Yeah.
And
That's really funny because that's kind of exactly the kind of mentality or like approach I had when I first started like hosting and stuff. Cause like I kind of do consider myself like an introvert, and like I grew up pretty shy and I wasn't really necessarily the first, like I was never the first kid to like go talk to somebody else and introduce myself and be like, let's be friends. Like I was nice when I appreciated when people introduced themselves to me, but I was never one to like go out of my way to do that. And so I feel like I would get a lot of questions of like, oh, really? Like, that's what you want to do? You want to be like, don't you know, you have to be kind of confident and like extroverted and stuff like that to do like hosting and streaming and stuff like that. But like Shady, exactly like you said, it was something, I don't know if it was necessarily for me, the fact that I couldn't see the other people, but like, it's different when you're looking into a camera and talking to it than like when you're talking to, I think, a person, really, because like the camera doesn't have emotions, so all you can do is like just be yourself. Whereas then when I'm talking to someone else, like I kind of get in my head about, oh no, how are they reacting to this? Are they responding to what I'm saying? Do they think I'm weird? And you kind of have to process that all in real time. And like it just felt like it was like a lot for me to do. But then like with hosting, turn on the camera and I'm like, oh yeah, I can talk, no problem.
Yeah.
Kristen, sorry.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was gonna say, did you ever have any moments of like dark night of the soul, like maybe it got too much or your confidence got like shaken in certain points where you were like, I can't do this, I need to stop, I need to give up?
Yeah, how much time do you have? There was so many times, like when I first started streaming, I dropped out of university to pursue it full time, and I lived in my parents' basement. And
the true gamer archetype.
I just totally fit that. Yeah, I manifested that for sure. And I remember there was the days where it was just unbelievably toxic, or I was like cycling or on my period or whatever it was, and it just like something just ticked me the wrong way, and I just shut stream off, and I would just lay on my floor and bawl my eyes out. I'd crawl up the stairs and I would just lay on the floor in the kitchen, and my mom or dad would come around eventually, and they'd be like, oh honey, like what is wrong, you know? And I was really lucky to have very supportive parents, and they were just like doing their best. But it's like putting yourself out there like that in such a toxic space, and like it could have been something like I was already being insecure about my gameplay, and then a guy that like I respected said something about my gameplay, like it didn't even have to be stream related, and I would just lose it. And then you lose it on stream, and you show that little nick in your armor, and then the trolls come out and they're like, she has a break, go like pile in there, and you're like, so like in terms of like the toxicity online, there was definitely days where I was like, I can't handle this, and that goes back to kind of what you were finishing with on the confidence thing, where it's like, I am me. And I had to learn that, like, and this is my new mantra, is just, I'm not responsible for other people's projection of me. And so it's like, I can't control if you've eaten that day and you're not hangry. I can't control if you've had no trauma in your life. I can't control if a girl was ever mean to you. I can't control, all of these lists of things that incorporate people's negativity. So that's a whole side of streaming. And so just learning to understand, you're going to have fans, you're going to have neutral people who don't care if you're alive, and you're going to have people that hate you no matter how saintly you are. So that was kind of an interesting understanding that I developed through streaming, and that's just rippled out into my life as a whole, as a confident, strong woman. But the dark night of soul with streaming, like there's also plateaus and downs, and depending how you structure your community, like you could get really reliant on the game that you're playing. And if you start not enjoying that game, or that game doesn't get as many viewers because people aren't enjoying that game anymore, like there's so many elements of streaming that like, and you're not earning as much money, your numbers aren't good, everything is interrelated, your mood goes down, you're less entertaining to watch, and it just compounds. And so I've actually like quit streaming so many times. Like I think I'm on like a 2 or 3 year cycle at this point. And then I hermit, I hide, and I try and come back, and then I burn out, and then I try and come back, I burn out. And I had to learn how to show up authentically as me and not chasing this like perfection of the top streamer. Like if it's like perfectly aligned for you to be the top streamer because you're acting like in your highest path, great, right? But if you're changing yourself and your character and your qualities in order to chase like the most followed or the most viewed or the highest earning or the most subscriptions, and you're chasing the top game, you're chasing the drama, you're chasing the most cleavage, the shortest skirt, the how much stuff can you say, like it's just like from a psyche perspective, like it's just not healthy at all. And so you can get caught in that kind of success loop, which is the success or definition of success is. And so I went through a few of those until I learned what my perfect schedule is, and I was just patient with myself, and it comes in and I'm good at it and I can stream and make content a lot, and then another dark night of the soul passes and I'm like, I've mastered this isn't challenging anymore, I'm not entertained, and I can't do anything, like I said at the beginning, that I don't enjoy doing, which is terrifying because they say once you find your passion, you know, you're set for life, but then the world has other plans. So
that sounds like the loop that I've gotten stuck in. Not just what I exist in. And I've been like, what word do I use for this? Is this mental health related? Is this burnout? Is this, what is this? Because it's like on and then off and then on and then off. And I can sort of track it. And I've gotten where I see the symptoms and I know when it's coming on, but then I can't, there's no preventing it. And it's like, feel like I'm doing the stuff that I love, like but it's like twofold. I can either do what is like the system, the formula, this is going to this, I will be at the top row of this category, so I will get more visibility and grow, very robotic, right? I can focus on the robotic choice, the algorithmic choice, analytical choice, even if it's not necessarily what I'm passionate and built up by, but then I don't really really enjoy. I like it, but I don't really enjoy it. Or if I focus on the passion, the thing that I'm like lit up by, then it's like I milk all of the joy out of it by monetizing it or capitalize, bringing it into this whole system. So it's I'll swing between analytic choice, heart-driven choice, and burnout, and it's like a constant. It's so swirly-eyed emoji moment. Yeah.
I feel like I have maybe some like wisdom, or at least a kind of related topic I would like to maybe pick both of your brains on regarding kind of that exact phenomenon, because that's definitely something I've experienced. I've heard from other streamers that they've experienced the same thing. And another thing I've observed is I've known streamers who will take a full-time job, and often it's like doing like community management for a video game that they like, or it's something still related to esports and gaming, and then still streaming on more of a quote unquote part-time basis. And what they experience a lot of times is that they have more fun with the stream because now they don't have the pressure of, well, this is how I make my money, so I have to do it when I'm not even when I'm not feeling it, even if it's a game I don't feel like playing, or, oh no, now I've monetized a game I do feel like playing, so it's no longer enjoyable for me. And they just don't really have that experience because now it's like, oh, their stream is just for fun, but then they end up like having better viewers and potentially even making more money off of it than before when they were just a full-time streamer. And so kind of going along with that, I think what I really want to pick y'all's brains on is this idea that so many people, and I see this among a lot of like younger people, especially, so many of them want to become a content creator for a living. And there's so much glamorization of the like full-time content creator lifestyle, like in terms of they just think that like that's when they'll have made it, right? Is when they can leave any other job. Right, exactly. So I guess what I'm saying is like, what do both of you think of this? Like, should people aspire to be full-time creators? Is it mentally healthier to have another way to kind of pay the bills and then do streaming as like a fun thing?
And I want to add on to that question for you, Kristen, because I think that it's manifested through you. You aren't on Twitch 24/7, but you're still successful, quote unquote, right? And you talked about your perfect schedule earlier. So maybe how have you come in to like balance these things out and find the right routine where it doesn't burn you out or like ruin your passion because you've monetized what you love, kind of thing? And how have you found the balance in this?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I do a lot of what I love. And I think that's probably the biggest thing for me, is just recognizing that I'm not a single talent, like passionate person. And I think a lot of people in our society don't give ourselves enough space to be multi-passionate. And so it's like, oh, I'm an artist and now I'm monetizing art on Etsy and now that's my whole thing. But they don't cultivate that hobby, another one on the side. Like maybe they like making tree art or clothing or dancing or whatever it is to like feel creative and move through that. And for me, I've actually struggled with this a little bit lately on my contribution to the idealized content creator and my contribution to more people playing games and following this path as a whole. This path is freaking great when it works out and you're in that bliss state. I think it's similar to like musicians when they're touring and you're like, there's people coming in and they're cheering for you and you're like, oh my gosh, like I feel like ecstatic, you know. There's just a way that comes in with content creation, and especially that moment when you get paid to do something that you love to do, because they're so ingrained that like love and work like haven't really existed for our parents and people before us. I mean, some of them, it's been more and more, I think, all the time. But I believe we're just experiencing growing pains of like a dominator society phasing out into this, like, I'm kind of calling like ergonomic, like what we sit in for chairs and good mice and things like that, but like an ergonomic work life, like one that suits humans and especially suits women, which is a whole other topic. Like I was on an IUD for the first 3 years of streaming and I didn't get my period. I did not feel emotional. I was like able to be like that man who could just stream and not be like swayed by the current of the world. And after going off of it, it like greatly affected my streaming. And that I think was part of my burning out, was all of a sudden I'm like sensitive and intuitive and emotional, which is like, there's so much pleasure in that and beauty in that and like wisdom in that. But we're not really told about that, honestly, growing up very much.
Right.
And so my perfect structure became, okay, what is like my minimum effective dose? Like, what are my prime hours? When do I get the most viewers, the most engagement, the most interaction, the most donations? What's like the prime time for sponsors, etc. And so I whittled that down to 20 hours a week, 5 days, 4 hours a week. No, is that right? Yes. Yeah. 5 days, 4 hours a week. I streamed Thursday to Monday. So my weekend was Tuesday, Wednesday. And I did this through meditation. So figured that out. And I was like, what would this look like for a schedule where I feel deeply like served through my work and I feel deeply free through my work? So it's this combination of structure to create creativity and then this freedom to enjoy my youth, my increased finances, my increased freedom, like to try other passions. And like my biggest passion, and I think you can be creative to this too, is traveling. So what I settled on was 3 weeks a month, I was streaming 20 hours a week. And, you know, outside of streaming, I had an editor that I was working with full time to make daily content that was getting pumped out from that 20 hours. And now I would be doing TikTok clips too, if I was still on that schedule. I'm recommending this to someone listening. And then I did, and this is, I mean, different for everybody. And then I did a week of travel. And so for that week, I had YouTube videos that were getting uploaded every single day because that was the algorithm. But I had my editor and I paid my editor. I had one person who would highlight and download and put it on Drive. And then I had my editor who would take, edit, upload, thumbnail, description, schedule, social media post. And so all I had to do was show up for those 20 hours and then like work creatively on like approvals and ideas for videos. And then I had an assistant for correspondence and booking and scheduling. And then I took a week off every month. and I went to a different country in the world every single month. Wow. And when I first started doing this, I was coming out of a major burnout. I was coming out of a breakup, actually like 2 breakups. I was coming out of like, luckily I had money saved. And when I first started doing this for the first 3 months of paying everyone and streaming and doing all this, I was spending 4 or 5 times as much as I was earning. And then I remember I was in Hong Kong where like the tides shifted and like the algorithm decided, oh, hey, this person posts on our like, dominator industry algorithm that you need to post every single day. She's doing it. Like, let's finally recommend her, whatever the algorithm is. It's all coded by, like white and Asian men in Silicon Valley who have like their own set of what they think this should look like. Anyways, whole other topic. But the way it influences us is really interesting. But yeah, and so it picked it up, and then all of a sudden I was breaking even, and then all of a sudden I was making 4 times as much. So I was paying off for those past months, and I was being able to pay myself and travel more and start saving and investing again. And then the momentum of that brought in sponsorships, which brought in more fluid income again. So that was my method, and that worked out really great for me. And that allowed me to feel like, okay, I'm doing all the algorithm things, but I'm putting a guy in charge of that. And then he isn't like, it wasn't full time for him, but he was getting like paid well. And so that, like, he was very attentive with that. So I could be fluid. I had my hours, and I still had that kind of free time, whether you take that time off for a week to work on other passions, but that was the flow. And it was usually when I was on my period or about to get my period. Like, I would time these things. I'd still time meetings and projects and filming around my period so that I am like supercharged magnetic when I'm ovulating. And then when I'm on my period, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to explore and be quiet. And
that's so smart though. That's a lot with what like I do through my content, not in as like explicit terms, because I do have a lot of people who are not people who bleed that watch my content. But I, with like the tarot and the magical stuff, like I started a podcast that's specifically focused around the moon cycles. And so we meet up, it's a once a month thing where we meet up and we just talk about what the full moon is, what it means, how it affects you, how you can celebrate it, this kind of thing. And and I'm starting
you do a little ceremony.
Yeah.
Do you do it on the day of the full moon too?
We're kind of trying to figure that out. Like we're like, do we need to, because you get the intuition and the messages better when it's closer to the actual full moon, but you want to give it to people early enough that they can use it to prep how they want to celebrate for it or how to work with it. We're kind of trying to figure that out right now. But because I've got that as an anchor in my monthly routine now, it feels like the new moon is starting to be the more introverted, the full moon is the more extroverted. And I've got this whole book that I bought. It's like a little journal to like track cycle, how does it line up with the moon, and try to get it more in sync with that. And so I whether you are someone who and we all have like a hormonal cycle, like period, so it doesn't no pun intended with the period, but so it doesn't matter. People are going to be syncing up with that, and there's scientific stuff going into how the full moon affects human behavior and all of this stuff. So linking up with it, getting in touch with like the natural cycles is a big thing that I feel like I'm subtly trying to introduce to people, because sometimes people hear certain keywords and they just like fingers and ears tune out, la la la, wow, that's real, magical sounding, whatever. They don't, but it's like, it's so
science.
Don't you have a hard time sleeping when it's like close to a full moon? Cause it's just so bright and our bodies are wired, and like get outside. Like it's to me undeniable, but yeah.
The moon is cool too. I just was reading an article on Science Daily, and they were talking about the effect of the moon on our tectonic plates too. So like the moon is so strong that it's actually causing like not just shifts in the tides, but shifts in like the solid plate. Well, they're floating, makeup. But the plates of the earth too. And so like, yeah, a stronger moon can cause more movement and earthquakes and volcanoes. And I'm like,
I love how practical and magical your mind can get. So thank you so far for all of these wonderful insights and answers and questions and thoughts. That might get us to the end of level 1 of the podcast, and we've reached a save point. So we will be right back after this short break. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are here chatting with Kitty Plays, or Kristen, and we're going all over the place. We're keeping it surface level with boss level stuff, and we're getting deep talking about VR and psychedelic mindsets and syncing up with the moon. It's very fun. It's very all over. So, I guess maybe we could talk a little bit about your history and how you kind of evolved over maybe the decade or so that you've been a public persona or creating this brand. You started streaming as Kitty Plays, you formed Team Kitty, working in esports, and you founded a new company lately. So there's this whole evolution going on for you. When you started streaming, was it with the intention of becoming a business lady?
That's a great question. So this comes hand in hand. When I first started streaming, my intention was purely just to have more people to play with. Like, I was so lonely in university, and I remember I'd watch Legendary Leah's stream, and she would log on to a new character on World of Warcraft, and there would be 10 people waiting in the starting zone to join her group and to play with her. And I just remember seeing this, and I was like, I want that. Like, I want to have this sense of community online. And like, gaming in general, it just brings people together and it makes you feel included. And it's such a beautiful, inclusive community. Like, it's my favorite one on the internet. So that was my original intention, but I was studying accounting and finance double major at the time. And I was in a lot of like customer relations classes and business development. And I've always been extremely business minded. And so once I started to see, like, I mean, I remember my first $10 donation and I just freaked out. Like, it was like, oh my God, what? You want to give me money? You know?
That's like a restaurant framing their first dollar bill or something. That's
yes,
cute.
not knowing that it would lead to like having a $100,000 day, you know, like I had no idea the exponential scale of where things would go. Like, if someone would have told me where things started, where things ended, I would have been like I would have just taken all my clothes off and ran around naked, crying, laughing.
I think you would have gotten a lot more donations if you'd done that.
Yeah, wrong website.
You would have just been a true like naked happy baby moment though.
Just a total like freedom, bliss, like life can be this good. And so it's just such a like interesting development that way. But I did recognize a period after only like 2 weeks of getting into streaming where I was like, whoa, looking around at all my peers, I was like, nobody's treating this like a career. Guys, like, we're making some money playing games, but nobody's treating this like a business or like a brand. And like, these influencers were starting to pop up on Instagram and social media, and these businesses were starting to get created behind like celebrity and personality and all these things. And I was learning about all this in business, and I was like, wait, we're businesses. Like, this is a corporation. Like, my brand is like brand, like my name is a brand. And so when I started to, that picture started to like kind of download in, I was like, wow, this is huge. Like, gaming can be a career. This can be a job. Like, this, it doesn't just have to be some like little weird thing that we're doing online, paying for like our bar money for the weekend or whatever. And so, yeah, it just like all of a sudden came into picture. And then I just spent, you know, my career dedicating it to that. And then it's just that kind of balance of like my deep desire to build like authentic, loving communities coupled with this just extreme pleasure in expansion and creating abundance and prosperity, and then like sharing that. And yeah, it was cool.
You mentioned, you
sorry.
go ahead, Jess. Sorry.
Oh,
you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask, like, where do you see yourself going next? Because I know we talked, you know, a little bit, I think this was before we were recording, about how, of course, like, you know, you guys are starting gaming, and now Twitch has expanded into more than just gaming. And obviously, so have you have so many different talents and passions. And, you know, how do you kind of square that up with like, oh, my roots are in gaming? Do you ever feel like you're betraying your roots if you like do like, I'm not implying that you are, but do you ever feel like guilt if you're like streaming something that's not gaming, kind of, for instance?
I got over that like in year 3. Like, I remember Twitch focused on me to do the first cooking stream on Twitch. Like, that was like a big thing with like who's that one famous French chef who did the series? Anyways,
Oh.
her stuff was getting aired and streamed, kind of like the Bob Ross stuff. And so they launched this new cooking section. And so then I got to cook on stream, you know, and then I got to do like more full screen. Like it was
Oh my God, I bet the troll
accepted to be
comments were
full
great.
screen on Twitch, you know? And so just introducing these like IRL forms. So while gaming is the way that I was able to relate to the gaming community, like the real, like when I tune in and I ask myself, why did it bring me so much joy? It was that I got to bring the light and the love and a role model of unconditional love, of genuine happiness and pleasure in life and light into the inaccessible. And how I looked at that was like, I have such a strong desire to just remind people of their goodness and their love and their beauty. And there's so many people that grow up without an example of someone that loves them, really, or someone that it can embody love or hold love. And so like the unreachables are like the people who are at home in their basement playing video games, whose only experience are each other in this echo chamber on Twitch and Discord. And I was like, no, I'm coming in. Like I said, it was that dark corner. Like I want to come in and bring the light and bring the love and remind people of like their power and their beauty and their impact on the world. And it's just, that's where the joy comes from. So if that's like my truth, anywhere where I point that now, like my like essence and my energy and my being follows. And so yeah, what's next for me? I've been doing a lot of investing in the crypto and NFT space, a lot of learning in the Web3 space. I have so many different software. Like I just have all these ideas, so many software ideas, so many product ideas. And so it's just integrating the right team of developers and marketers and things like that to really launch them. I tried to launch a piece of software last year. I learned a lot about who to trust, what type of team to build, and who to give money to, and what type of contracts to have, and when to get funding, and all these things. And so it's been like a lot of trial and error. And I think it's, I mean, just as important for people to talk about their failures as their successes. And I really feel like the last 2 years for me, I haven't been streaming as often. I've been living off a lot of like sponsorship revenue, which is great. You know, thank you all the sponsors that believe in me. But for 2022, I had this like vision that I'm not going to accept any sponsorship revenue for the year, which is like 80% of my income. And so now it's like putting, even though I've got enough money to like survive for a few years, like it's just put a little bit of a pressure on me where it's just money going out now. And I'm like, okay, how does this feel? Can I sit in this? Yes. And then what do I really want to do? You know, like if I'm not part of like selling more stuff to people that I don't think they need, which includes playing more video games and includes using more unnecessary products or feeling insecure about your face and needing to buy like more like makeup or hair or whatever else I was selling beforehand, like what do I want? Like what messaging do I want to be a part of? And that's just like finding your own light and your own love and your own connection to yourself and your community. So I've been looking at a lot of different DAOs and diving pretty deep on building communities and what does it look like for creator communities and like multiple ownerships and things like that. So I'm happy to be on this podcast because while I'm answering these questions, it's translating a little bit better in my head. But a lot of like these ideas that I have around new communities and like equitable ownership for everyone involved, like I have this vision of taking Kitty Plays and like selling it to my community and us starting a DAO together where we vote and create the character that is Kitty Plays that will continue on, and like what is like the perfect gaming creator, because we have all the tools now when it comes to modeling, rigging, AI, Vocaloid, etc.
See, this is where I get like I remember when the VTuber thing started skyrocketing, and I remember thinking, how can I ever compete with this? They don't get tired. They don't have a bad hair day. They're not they're, you know what I mean? Like
So you're gonna love my idea or
I'm
hate
not
it.
talking even like the because I've got friends who are VTubers that are still just them, but they're with their skin on screen. But I'm talking the ones that are produced by these companies that are they're idols in their own way, but they're virtual and they're scripted and they're everything is done for them.
Like
So
Michaela or who's the
yes.
girl that sings the Vocaloid in Japan?
Oh, like
This is
Miku.
Miku, yeah. This is the future, right?
So,
Like
sorry to interrupt. Can you explain what is a DAO?
a DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization.
Okay.
So it's kind of like in the past, the world was really opened up by LLCs, like this ability for multiple people to come together and create a company and a business together. And so what DAOs are doing is it allows you to get a large group of people together that can co-fund a project or donate their sweat equity and then make decisions as a collective on the vision for the product or their ideas or the character themselves. So how it relates to mine is a lot of people look at NFTs as this art and this thing that they're constantly getting shilled and advertised on. And it's a little bit scammy. There's a lot of rug pulls. A lot of people are doing kind of like really
NFT is such a
like
spicy
shady
topic
tax
right
stuff
now.
with it too. Like there's a lot going on in that space. And I'm not to say it's like all bad. Like I really just think it's done wonders for the artistic community and for people to be able to get paid to create art, I think is beautiful. But how I look at NFTs is like it's a non-fungible token and it exists on the blockchain. And so it essentially means that you can mark this moment in time with this specific hash that nobody can mess with. And so you can say that this specific token, when it matches up with, I just got an email for OpenSea, that's funny. This specific token, when it matches up with your, I don't know the technical terms for this, but it allows people access. So it can have art, like it can be a face of me smiling. And then if you have this in your wallet and you connect your wallet to the DAO, that gives you access into the DAO. And so with that, you're going to have a set of tools. And with those tools, we can vote, we can structure accordingly, we can create groups, we can share files, we can build things similar to how a corporation operates now, but it's not this kind of pyramid style CEO at the top, executives, employees, etc. We're as a collective, we co-own this idea. And then we vote, and there's a lot of discussions on like quadratic voting and other forms of voting on how to best make decisions with a large group. And I've spent a lot of time in meditation to really visualize this. So I have like a strong vision on the way that I would restructure in a 3D space and like to show the way we can get together and work on projects together and interact. So that's a whole other thing.
Could the group voting lead to, so I want to like bring this back to like an influencer realm because and I wanted to talk to you about the word influencer too. But with the group voting and the way that the mob mentality works online, right? So and sometimes it'll just tip out of nowhere for kind of no real reason. And someone's just on the chopping block or in the guillotine or whatever. And they like in the grand scale of things, usually when we get like 2 years out and we look back, we're like, whoa, that's what they were getting like flogged in the street for. Like it's been 2 years and we're looking back and it's like really kind of not that big of a deal at all. Like, and it because
it's
the
like
mob
you're talking about
cancel culture to a certain, yes, it's definitely that's a word for it too. I'm thinking more the mob, and we're talking a group of people making a decision. And what if they get on that mob mentality? Maybe it's like a catastrophizing.
If there's like negative DAOs, like hate DAOs,
or yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there totally could be. I mean, it's like with any tools you create, it's not about the tool. Like a knife can kill someone and also perform life-changing surgery.
Right. Because people can come in. I don't understand the space at all. So like I guess that's just my brain immediately. I have a bit of a fear-based mindset a lot sometimes where I'm like, oh, what if the bad thing happens? What if the bad thing happens? So like that's kind of, and I'm thinking more in terms of too with the cancel culture. So like maybe you create this DAO and then for some reason or other, the group of people gets in that moment of like, we're going to flog this person in the street, and it's not really necessary in the moment. It feels right. It's like, yeah, we all got to get this person, because how could they do this? But then a year or two goes by, and some people might reflect, not everyone does, and be like, wow, maybe this was like a little much, kind of thing. And maybe in terms of influencing too. And I wonder what you think of the word influencer, because you started before that word was common. I'm sure it was used maybe here and there, but like not the term that was used, content creator, influencer, and just the word influencer. I'm big on like the language that we use and what it implies. And
someone who has influence.
And how that's especially merging in with the VR world and creating these not real, quote unquote, people that are influencing us, and who would
I know. I think about that a lot. So that's a great question. Like, I think I really just distill it down to this idea that it is a being that has influence. I mean, like the TikTok algorithm is an influencer if you're like going in that direction. So how I see the DAO being is like, it's more or less like you are with a group, and you'll make decisions on like, what color is her hair? How tall is she? What is her chest size? What are her eye color? What outfit is she going to wear today? And then you would have different groups. Like, one is like a podcast bubble, one is a blog bubble, one is a YouTube bubble, one is a thing. Like, what kind of content does she make? She can make content on every single platform ever, constantly. She could be live streaming on Twitch with the support of an AI constantly. And then I had this vision. So if you build this character, right, you could literally go through and download every single girl's VOD footage ever on Twitch into a machine learning AI, GPT-3 or something like that. And you could literally create a girl next door vision of a girl gamer that you could have live stream constantly. But then I took it a step further. It was where you could fractal that, and people could own their own version of this program, and they could overlay it with their own version of their ideal dream girl. And then that dream girl is there greeting them and live streaming to them and responding to them constantly. They don't have to donate to her. They just have to buy her once. And now she's this live-in friend, doesn't have to be anything more. So these are the things that I think about a lot, but I think
I live in Black Mirror, like
that's kind of
gonna say, I've seen horror movies about this.
Like, that's kind of far out.
Because there are literal horror movies about this.
Yeah.
I think it's because it's a new area. This is like my partner is very big into this kind of space too. And they often speak about how when the internet first started existing, nobody knew what it was and what it meant. And I feel like what we're stepping into now is the expansion of that, but it's just as scary. So when I hear this, like I'm immediately thinking like, I'm also
the implications.
Yeah, the implications. I'm thinking of the autonomy of this entity that we would be creating. This comes into the question of, is AI human? Does it get human rights? The whole, which sci-fi has fully gone into over and over and over again in movies. And this is and then is we're playing God, or are we creating gods? And it gets this is why this conversation, I think it's been weird, because the last couple of weeks, it's been very much on the tip of my tongue everywhere I turn, like people who I never really talk about this stuff with either. And I'm like, this is just I literally had this conversation with my partner last night, and like they were saying we're evolving into like we're merging with machine or whatever. It was kind of the turn of phrase that he used, and I was like, but are we supposed to? And we talked about this earlier with the feet on the ground, head in the clouds. Like, how do we keep the natural connection while not losing ourselves to the machine or the merging with the AI? Like it's such a, and we don't have the answers. Like this is literally like mind-bending insanity to discuss. It's like, oh my gosh, like what are we on the edge of right now? Like, yeah.
So this is where my energy comes in, is like, I want to be the light of this.
Yeah.
Right. Like I am also starting a podcast where I'm calling it Light Mirror. So it's funny that you brought up Black Mirror, but it's like,
I love that. That's cool.
I want to reflect the light of future ideas and people back at them, so we can move from an optimistic lens and create products in an optimistic light. And if the negative stuff happens, you move and you deal with it. But I think when we're creating and planning for Black Mirror type potentials, like that's pretty scary. But Like, for example, like one of the projects I would love to build is an AI that's a psychotherapist AI. And like my therapist has 30,000, or not 30,000, he has like thousands of hours of radio broadcasted live therapy. And it's all analog right now. And I want to digitize it and again, put it in a machine learning. And because you have like these kids who have had terrible situations, which I don't want to bring up on this podcast, but they don't respond to a guy or a girl as therapy people anymore. But you could create this little bot that is a panda, you know, and they can go and talk to their panda and say, hey, I'm feeling really angry. You know, it's like, oh, I'm feeling angry. Like, how does that feel? You know, and there's like this kind of this process of like soothing and understanding and processing our emotions that can exist and can be done without the help of a human. And so then again, combining those two, where it's like, yes, there's like very dark Black Mirror aspects of this, but it's also like if we had that kind of unbiased, and I don't want to say sentient, but like semi-human understanding sentience.
But when does it become sentient? Like that's
that we could check in with, that doesn't have trauma and doesn't have baggage and doesn't have skewed perspective. Like we do our best to code it that way, at least. Like I think that's so important. Like I just think about talking with my partner and us trying to, you know, heal generational epigenetic trauma together and like our own issues and understanding ourselves, and just not, even with therapists, just not having the tools. There's like so many layers to that. So if you could interact with something that is going to support you on your journey and wants what's best for you, and you'd have to code that and have a conversation on what that looks like. But I don't know, these are the types of conversations I've been interested in and having with a lot of my development friends. And
I'm a horror fanatic, so that's kind of always the first place I go to. How can I make a scary movie out of this? How is this a creepy pasta? So
you can have the void, you can have void mirror and I'll have light mirror, and we'll create these two DAOs and we can create a wormhole between them and work together.
But see, I don't actually want to, but then I don't know, my little morbid curiosity, I'm like, okay, wait, I got to peek over here. Like,
what do they call that? A cortisol junkie?
Yeah, honestly, I'm sure that's what it is. I actually had to stop playing horror games because it has messed up my, like I have like heart palpitation. I've got working on cardiac issues right now because
it hijacks your nervous system.
Yeah,
that's like people who love watching murder mysteries and everything like that. It's like they're addicted to that feeling of like. So, well, I mean, I could psychoanalyze you.
I was like, please go on. I need to know what's wrong with me. Help.
But it's like, yeah, it's a whole thing where it's like, it's around like when you're feeling like that, like there's clarity that comes with that heightened state. And it's like chasing those peaks gives you a sense of control because you're accessing that part of your brain that is very clear and very in control. And so people like who binge watch murder mysteries, who binge watch a horror, who read those stories, is they're searching for that. Like one, it makes you feel alive because your body is like, you're like, it's like, I'm alive.
Well, that's even like, how I felt playing Overwatch and Dark Souls and or Outlast. Like these horror, Outlast is truly a horror game, but like Dark Souls, more that adventure adrenaline. Overwatch adrenaline. Like, and I played those nonstop for years while I was working at a coffee shop, drinking multiple shots of espresso every day. So I was just like, and I didn't realize what I was doing. And the same thing happened to me as a teenager, where I was just got hooked on horror movies, sneaking into R-rated films, going onto the anonymous internet forums, finding the craziest horror I could find. And as a 20 something, I started realizing like how much I'd like psychically damaged myself because I was just, and now I just, where I knee jerk react with like, oh, but it's scary, right? Like,
the programming you've done on yourself. Interesting. So, but I mean, it'd be interesting for us to talk after this, like how my path is like.
I know. It's so addicting to see like how just like radiant and bright you are. And then even interesting because you founded Radiance Media, Radiant Light. Like you, I think that's really interesting because I've always been like attracted to like the goth and the dark and the mysterious, creepy, ooky, spooky.
Yeah, but
like,
we need both,
the balance of it is nice. Yeah.
You literally can't have one without the other.
Polarity.
So maybe you could speak a little bit about segueing out of Kitty Plays into the boss that you are with founding, like what is Radiance Media, for example? What are you doing with it? Where is it going? And I'm also very curious, no spoilers or whatever, but with what kind of content you'll be making this year, and or what you're kind of seeing for yourself over this next little bit of time, and how because I feel like you're bringing people. This is what's so cool about you, is you're at the top to the small streamer, which I spend most of my time with, like small streamers, because it's who I teach to come into the field, right? You're at the top of the pyramid to the average person who's like, I just bought my first webcam, I just hit affiliate, you know what I mean? And how you turn around and you reach down and pull people up with you. I think that's really, really cool about you, and really admirable. And I'm glad the whole NFT crypto thing is a very spicy topic, and I'm glad to see someone like you there doing that. And it's not just the scary brains like me, or the people that have like nefarious, how can I capitalize, how can I the greed mindset more too, like greed. yeah so yeah, big question, but I guess it boils down to, how are you moving forward in the next bit of time with your content, and bringing people along with you, and the companies and stuff that you're going into?
Yeah, I feel like I'm just peeking out of my chrysalis right now. I feel like the last couple of years, like COVID really put me in like the goop stage. Like I was just goop. Like that's all I could have described myself, and had a few dark nights of the soul. And it's only now that like I'm beginning to peel back and being able to put language around it, and what I was feeling and what I was learning and understanding. And I'm really eager to, create this podcast Light Mirror to come alongside. And it's just going to be to show that like being multi-passionate is a superpower, and learning about the different things that I'm interested in, and bringing a light lens to it, which includes the people listening too. Like, how do we access like our resonance and our own internal voice that's going to give us the systems to be successful? And that's been the biggest thing with me too, where it's like, as hard as I've tried to blaze a trail and turn around and pull people up with me, like that never works. Like I've bought people whole setups, I've bought people, like I've given people followings, I've done all the things, and it's like, if they're not in it and they're not going by their own system, like it never functions properly. So I'm really engaged in like identifying what those systems are for people, and then connecting them to that in order for them to kind of follow the system, but chart their own path, right? And get the satisfaction of doing their own path instead of following mine. Mine worked for me then, and mine is working for me now in the now, but that's it.
If someone were to like follow in your footsteps and like copy what you did, it wouldn't necessarily have the same outcome, because like we said, times are different now.
Yeah, totally. And so just, and we have to just take a second to admire like the human ability to invent, and my biggest success, it was like, yes, it was great for me to look around and see what Leo was doing and see what Duck Sauce and Hafu were doing. But the most success that I had were those moments when I was like, oh, but I'm on a hike. I'm like, I can bring this into this, and I can bring that into this. And oh my gosh, they're not doing this like this. And so it's that beautiful internal voice that gets cultivated like through influences, but you're your own like, tapestry amalgamation of that. And then trusting that and walking in that confidence, like back to the confidence thing. So again, my intention is just to continue to spread light, to continue to bring these types of conversations and topics to people, like you said, that I think should be a part of them. Like, I think we need to be looking at things through a light lens. And I think that we need to have all types of people involved in cultivating and curating new spaces of the internet, especially with DAOs, especially with Web3, especially with NFTs. If it is predominantly created by people who are only living in a mindset of greed and singularity, then we're going to run into problems, or the doom and gloom of like this, mass surveillance corporate takeover, like there is all of that. But when we have the right minds talking to the right people, and again, that duality, that polarity, that positive and that negative, like I rely on people like you just as much as you rely on people like me, Shady, where it's like we have those opposing forces, but to create, like, what is this beautiful thing that we can create together when we bring the right people in the room? So fostering more of those types of conversations, going to more events that are, you know, focused on that, creating more products. And so I have a ton of software ideas, and then more content too. Like, I love producing content, and that's what Radiance was really created for, was around this idea of like, how can we, one, consult with companies that we're deeply aligned with and that have the same goals as us, is just to spread phenomenal messages like the one you're listening to now and the rest of the series of the Boss Level, with incredible hosts, and create products like this with companies, and to produce other types of shows and other types of content and other types of campaign that's more in alignment with those goals. And I'm so proud of Tyler and Libby and you guys for this podcast.
It's a fun opportunity. It's really neat.
Yeah.
I have a question.
It's unfolding.
Totally not segued, unrelated. I just really, really would love to hear your perspective on this. It's something I deeply struggle with, especially as like more of a sensitive person on the internet. And a lot of the small creators that I'm helping or try to help with my content to get into the field is around the topic of boundary setting, and how, and I think a little bit too of like workaholism. How do you shut off, disconnect, and how do you keep appropriate space in your like little bubble? How do you keep yourself protected in this world?
Yeah, so let me come at that from two layers. The first layer is like boundaries with people, and boundaries with community. It can feel, and I wished everyone didn't have to go through this, but there is just like this growth period that happens where it's like when you start out, and there's a certain type of person that seeks out the early people, you know, the ones with 1 or 2 viewers, and they like playing this kind of God complex in their streams, where they show up to every stream and they're going to be there, and they're going to be perceived as like this like glorious supporter, help. They don't ask for anything. They're always there. They're going to just like be there to support you, do anything for you. And I've had many of those come into my life, not just in gaming, in anything I do. Like whenever I'm being like naive and new in a space, I'm like, oh, well, I will show you the way, or not, no price, but everything comes at a price. And just to spot stuff like that early, and recognize that everything is not free, and that things like that kind of energy can evolve into a lot of control and anger and pushing of boundaries and disrespect. So I don't really know how to ownership. Yes. And possessiveness, which we know that anytime we try and possess things, it's not a good energy. So I don't really know what to say about that, but just be aware of that when that's happening, and not give your power away ever, to trust in your own innate ability to command your community. Never share your passwords, never share your accounts, never share your access to your community. Maintain that all the time and maintain that tightly. Privacy is super important with your own private information, your address, your last name, your everything, like anything you can keep to yourself, keep to yourself. Like, that's why I love with like DAOs and NFTs and things like that, there's more of this push towards this like profile picture, you know, nobody knows, or avatars, you know, people don't know who you are. So it doesn't matter what you look like, what you do, how old you are, like you can be who you feel like you are in the now.
That's where I feel like VTuber comes into. I love seeing the VTuber kind of take off, because it is people getting to, and there's this anime movie that just came out called Belle that's a lot about it too, where you get merged into another universe. It's like what we're building with the metaverse, I suppose, and it reads your biometric information and turns you into exactly what you should be according to like your internal, you know, whatever. But it's an avatar that you become over there. I love the concept. I'm like, what would I look like? What am I really like?
Yeah, that's like the guy coming out as a slime or whatever in the one anime. I'd probably be a slime. Yeah. Oh, I like that. I'll have to check it out.
It's a beautiful anime. I think you'd like it. Most people should. It just came out this year, still in theaters. Sorry, I'm a simp for that movie though. It's really good.
Perfect. It's a movie too. Great. I'll go check it out.
And it's kind of like
I,
an anime Disney movie. It's a musical. They're singing. It's about self-confidence and like, so it's a good watch. Yeah.
cool. Yeah, I love anime movies. My favorite one is what's it called? In her no, not In Her Name. Your Name?
Your Name. It's a really sad one. Oh yeah.
Yeah, but
It's uplifting, but it's definitely
it's
like
how
you're
my
gonna cry.
boyfriend and I got together actually. Was like we had a certain situation where we like couldn't be together, but we like fell in love. And then I
Aw.
sent him that movie, just sending him the movie that I liked. And then it just we were together after
That's
that.
sweet.
So
Aw.
yeah. Special meaning. And yeah, in terms of the boundaries, it's just make sure that like when you're giving little, you give a little, your community will often expect a lot. And so just be careful with that, you know, careful with your attention. Like sadly, in the beginning, I was so close with my community. We would like talk all night, we'd hang out in Discord, we would do all the things, and then stuff started to get weird. And then I had to start putting in boundaries. And then as I got more and more popular, like you're like you kind of nobody talks to you when you don't have anyone watching you, right? And as you become more and more popular, you become more people want to talk to you, but you still don't have the level of inaccessibility that happens as you get larger. Like now people just assume that they can't contact me. They're like, oh, she's too big, she would never respond, she gets hundreds of messages a day, blah blah blah. They all have these reasons. And like I read all my DMs. I have time to read all my DMs. I try to respond to a lot of them. I know that I can't respond and I have my own boundaries, and you learn your own boundaries with that. But there is this valley that happens. And so when you're in, as a content creator, when you're in the bottom of that valley and you're getting attention, but you're still accessible, it can feel very overwhelming. And I think a lot of people take advantage of that. And that's kind of like that. I don't really know the right tools to give you other than just to make you known of it and know that like as you keep growing that will kind of pass.
There's also a weird guilt associated with growing or reaching that inaccessible point after that accessible valley. You're made to feel bad for reaching that point. I know a lot of people that'll hit partner and then have to deal with, you know, that's well, they don't deserve it, kind of like but where before they were and you've changed and all of this kind of stuff. And that comes into, we've talked about the one person that takes the ownership over you, but this comes into the group feeling an ownership over you as a small entity. And now you're which is sad, because it's like you should want to see the expansion of the individual and instead of keeping them small. I don't know. And then I feel like we want to keep ourselves small because we don't want to disappoint that set of people, you know.
Okay, well, there's a lot to unpack.
What a cycle. Yeah, a cycle.
Like I want to go back to like never ever 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 dim your brightness in order to help others feel more bright. If there's anything I've learned over the course of my life, it is like when I shine, I give permission others to shine. That's like a Marianne quote from A Course of Love or whatever. And it's just this idea that like when I dim, and I dimmed and dimmed, and I would get physically sick, like physically pain, trauma, pain bodies, all these things when I would dim myself for other people. Like when you shine, they can shine, but never dim yourself for other people. And I think if you're worried about your community, like you're going to obviously have people who are going to be upset about your success no matter what you're doing. But when you're starting to get that from your community, I think it's just important to outline like, hey guys, as much as I love building a community here, it's my goal to make a living doing this and make a really abundant living, and just be honest and transparent with it about them. Like there is this kind of weird thing that happens on Switch when you're making money from your community and you rely on them to grow, that like people will downplay like the financial side of things. But like, honestly, it's totally fine to upplay it, you know, and tell them like, oh yeah, like I love making money and now I'm going to go on this vacation and I'm going to bring you guys with me. And now you're going to see some photos from this vacation and I had a great time and it's thanks to you. So it's just framing it in a different way. Where it's like our goal is partner, because now we've got this new thing that we can use our imagination to start creating more incentives around and fun around and access around and like the layers that come with that. So I think it's just framing it to the community and
and probably a lot like framing it to yourself too. It's a mindset thing. It sounds like
that's how it starts. Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I don't know, maybe we could close out. Do you have anything that you maybe would, I do love this question. What advice would you give yourself when you're 15? Maybe we could close out here.
15. If I was 15, my biggest advice for my 15-year-old self would be to learn. The most important thing is learn to develop and know yourself and create this connection with yourself. Like, the only person you're going to know in life is yourself. So learn to know that you can rely on yourself. You can stand up for yourself. You can provide for yourself. You can teach yourself, take yourself on adventures, love yourself, please yourself, and find out what those things are that like you desire, and get in resonance with that. Because when you're standing in resonance with like your mind, body, and soul, you don't get triggered as often. You know what you want, and you have a lot more peace because you're not constantly looking for others to validate yourself, and it's freedom. And so when you're operating and moving from a place of that, then you can really start looking at the products and services and service that you can do in society that's in alignment with you, but it's also contributing to the upliftment of everyone around you. And it's not out of this longing or this need or this lack or this greed, or where I think a lot of other people create and build from, and then they get trapped by it. So that would be my advice.
I love that a lot of your messaging is about like truly being the best version of yourself, like living up, leveling up, living in the boss level moment, the higher self, like getting to that pinnacle. Cause I think that would help everybody, right? If we were all living in our highest ability, we would all be focused on our own plate. I feel like the best advice I've gotten recently was, keep your eyes on your own paper kind of thing. Like when you're in class, like just keep to yourself, keep to your truth, and keep pushing forward. Because it's so easy to get distracted, with a bunch of, as we've said, things that would need deep unpacking sessions about. But yeah, I guess you've heard from Kitty Place here of her best advice and tips for how she's navigating this ever-evolving world, and bringing light to everything she possibly can. And we're going to challenge you in the Discord to let us know how you can bring light to your daily life. Like, what's something you could do every day that could bring a little bit more light to how you're interacting with the world. And let us know what you're thinking about that, and we could highlight some of that in our next episode. So yeah, I guess that's going to wrap us up here at the Boss Level Podcast. Kristen, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'd love to take this offline with you guys. I think we got a lot of
we got into some topics.
Yeah, we got real juicy. I was not expecting to go so deep. Wow. And maybe we could wrap up too with what we've got coming up next. Jess, do you have anything planned going on right now for you?
I don't have anything super big and exciting as far as like my own streaming content. I do work for a charity organization called Gamers Outreach though, and we have a fun charity streaming event called Gamers for Giving coming up March 26th and 27th. It's virtual. It typically is a kind of LAN event that takes place at Eastern Michigan University, but of course for the last, this will be the third year, it'll be virtual. So if anyone is interested in participating in that, definitely hit me up. And let's plug some social media also while we're at it. I'm just at Jess Brohard on everything except for Twitch, where I'm twitch.tv/Jess.
A LAN party? Oh my gosh, that sounds so fun.
Yeah, really I can't wait until it's able to like return to an actual, in person, because it's so fun, because it's a LAN, I've been there multiple times in previous years, but it's a LAN party and a charity fundraising event all in one. So it's like the ideal scenario, but of course, because of the pandemic, it is virtual again. It's still really fun, but it'll be super magical when we can return to
That's cool. Again. Yeah. And then I'm just Hey Shady Lady across everything. I'm streaming on Twitch, I'm on YouTube. And that's really it. I've kind of tapped out on most of the other ones, but I don't have a lot really going on special, other than I'm doing the monthly podcast Celestial Cafe, where we discuss the full moon energy and how it affects you. But other than that, I'm just coming out of another one of my cyclical burnouts. So I'm trying to get back on the horse right now and get it, figure out what it is that that's why I think I was picking your brain so much about like scheduling and stuff, as I was like, I'm trying to figure that out for myself right now. Like what how to balance, what games am I going to play? Why do I want to play them, kind of thing. So Yeah, nothing super
Yeah.
special, but I think I'm trying to take it easy. I think that's why. How about you, Kristen?
Good. Normalize burning out, you know,
Yeah,
or maybe not burning out.
that's my brand at
Normalize.
this point. Like,
No, like normalize just the cycles of life, you know, and be on the leading edge of showing others that you can find success using different schedules and models, and not just like mediocre success, wild success, you know, like let that be your example. So I think that's exciting that you're getting to redesign that. And I would say meditate on it.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
like you can ask people questions all day on it, but they don't know, and you know.
that's
It's in
true.
you.
Yeah.
And as for me, you know, it's just I'm just living by my heart. I'm going to Egypt in a week
Wow.
to stay for a month with my friends, and then I'll be in Dubai and around Egypt, and then a little bit in Ethiopia, and just seeing where that takes me. Like I've designed my work now to be able to do wherever I go. So I'm following my heart and following my yes and seeing where that is. So if you want to follow my life and adventure or be part of any of the conversations and interests that I have, check out my socials. It's Kitty Plays across everything. And I also have a Discord where we discuss this type of stuff. And yeah, and if you're a developer, hit me up.
All right. Well, thank you everyone so much. I hope you have a wonderful week, day, night, wherever you are. And we'll see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.